Not sure where to start or how to guide your students in analyzing primary sources? Watch this video where I share some tried and tested strategies to support your students as they analyze primary sources for your course. For the best insight, support, and strategies for teaching social studies, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when a new video drops every Sunday. Do you and your students hit a roadblock when it comes to looking at primary sources critically? By the end of this video, you will learn how to prompt your students' curiosity and how to support your learners as you teach them how to analyze primary sources and how to do so confidently. If you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Cecilia Tamez, and I've been an educator for over a decade. And for the past 5 years, I've helped fellow history teachers by offering support, solutions, and resources to help them be effective educators and avoid teacher burnout. If you are a new history teacher that could benefit from personalized support and insight, make sure to visit Teach Like an Influencer at the link below to see all the resources and solutions I offer dedicated social studies teachers like you. One of the most overlooked strategies for teaching students how to analyze actually starts before the students even look at the primary source you're teaching, and that is priming your learners. The more challenging an activity is, the more you have to prime your audience, your students, and hype them up to prepare them to be intrinsically motivated to actually want to do this. Because when it comes to analyzing, one of the most difficult parts is actually convincing your students to be invested enough to think. And so this is a crucial step that you don't want to miss out on before you even start teaching your lesson. If your class is not intrigued by the content or the topic, they will not provide a real actual effort to try to analyze whatever resource you're working on in class. Now, if you're looking for some suggestions as to how you can get your students motivated to personally want to find answers to some of the questions that you're going to be, proposing or looking at in this primary source, make sure to check out my video, Highly Distractible Class, and I'll go ahead and link that up above and down below. And it gives you a step-by-step walkthrough about how you can hook your learners and how you can get them intrinsically motivated to want to participate and actually put that thought, that effort, and that energy into whatever activity it is, regardless of how challenging it's going to be, and get them to actually participate. I want you to think back of when you learned how to drive. So learning to drive is literally like a 3-ring circus. You got to be checking mirrors, putting on signal, like having a sense of direction so you don't get lost while you're driving. And so it's a lot to manage. And I feel like analyzing a primary source is also and it feels as overwhelming as learning how to drive. You know you're going to get there, but you're not exactly sure how. And so the first way that we actually absorb some sort of know-how, at least in theory, about how we're supposed to drive, actually comes from observation, from modeling. And so this is something that you want to make sure that you start with. I know that sometimes we're under a time crunch to just skip to juicy stuff, which is getting our students to just do it on their own because they know the content and that should be enough. But the truth is, many of our learners literally need that step-by-step support to know, what is the process of thinking? What should I be thinking? So let's look at how we can model effectively for our learners so that they know and understand what analyzing a document actually looks like. So the modeling sequence is going to be I do, so you as the teacher, then we do, you all as a class, and then you do, your student, eventually independently. So part of the modeling process is actually selling the lesson, which I opened up this video with and gave you a resource for. You want to literally get your students in a detective mindset. So one of the activities that I've done in the past, because I'm such a hoarder, is to share some actual primary sources from my life, my personal experience. So I legit have report cards from when I was in school. I have letters, little letters that my friends and I used to pass to each other in class and things like that I've kept over the years. And I will white out my name so that, students don't know it's mine. And I prompt their curiosity by having them just make inferences about that person or that scenario, or figure out what's going on. And this is something that is an activity that's not necessarily history related, and we're not looking at any historical source, but you are getting them to think about the fact that these primary sources are literally like little pieces of evidence. And I even asked my class, how many of you like watching shows like, CSI Miami and, the First 48 and things like that, crime scene investigation. I told them, history is the same way. The truth leaves clues. And I told them, just because something is omitted doesn't mean it's not important. And so this is kind of one of the ways that I prompt my students' curiosity, and I guide my students to think of primary sources as clues. So once you've taken the time to sell your lesson, part of modeling is pointing out important things that your students need to look at. For example, looking at dates. Is there a date on the document or on the cartoon? And so you want to get your students in the habit of looking for these clues or these details. You want to have your students look for titles. Is there a title to this political cartoon, to this map, to this legend? You also want them to look at icons, images, colors, and placement. And so where is a figure placed in a cartoon? You want them to look at those categories. Once you get students to just have an awareness of what they need to look for, those icons, that placement, those colors, then what you want to do is brainstorm with your students, because oftentimes they can point out what's important. Once you coach them through it and you model, hey, this is what we're looking for, they might be able to pick that out. They're challenged in putting that into a historical context so they can understand the significance of that primary document. When you are brainstorming, you might break down this resource into segments or chunks, even if it's something short. Now, during your brainstorming exercises where you model this for the class, you want to be asking questions that focus on the why. By taking the time to plan intentionally and creating some main focus questions for that particular topic, you're already guiding them and you're showing them what they need to be thinking about for that particular primary source. As time goes by and they start to notice like what kind of questions they ask themselves for political cartoons versus what type of questions they need to be asking themselves for letters, for documents, for deeds and titles and birth certificates, etc., then it will become automatic for them. So having pre-made questions is going to change the game for your learners and for yourself. So a good resource to look at that has a variety of primary sources for instruction could be something like the Digital Public Library of America that does house hundreds, if not thousands, of primary sources that you can use for your instruction. As you're practicing and modeling with your class, it's so important that your students are exposed to all the different primary resources that they need to know for their grade level and for the particular historical course that they're taking. As history teachers, you and I both know that there are thousands of types of primary sources to look at. And you also don't want to overwhelm your student just for the sake of having variety. This is where knowing your state standards and the student expected learning outcome is imperative, because that way you're not wasting your time, your very limited time, teaching your students how to, analyze maps if most of their assessments or if the expected learning outcome revolves around just focusing on political cartoons and, letters. Now, if you want a little bit more guidance about how to actually plan intentionally so that you're not wasting your time teaching your students material that they're going to be, learning in another grade level or that they may not be cognitively prepared for, you want to make sure you check out my video, How to Know If Your Students Are Really Learning. And I'll go ahead and link that up above and down below for you to check out after you finish watching this video. Depending on your class period, and I have to tell you this because it is a struggle that everyone, even veteran educators, face, there are some class periods where you will be teaching and modeling and scaffolding more than you would like to. And that's okay. And that's a discomfort that just let it sit with you. But please know that there is a method to the madness. So if your students are getting that consistent modeling and scaffolding, I can guarantee you when it's time for them to do it on their own, they will at least be empowered with a starting point of where to begin and what questions to ask themselves, even if you've had to walk them through the entire process about a gazillion times. So far, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to teaching primary sources in your class? Comment below and let me know. I do read all your comments, and I would love to continue making content that you find of value. Now, one of the ways that you can be extremely intentional, especially for your more dependent learners, is to create sentence stems. So this is going next level scaffold and support. When you create sentence stems for your learners, you're not only verbally modeling what to look for, what to point out, what to pay attention to, but you are guiding their thinking, especially if they have some sort of assessment where they have to write short responses, data-based questions, or inquiry type-based questions on a certain primary source. This is a great way to get them to transfer maybe their thoughts or their observations onto actual paper. You want to use the same verbiage so that students are comfortable with it and so that they know what action to take when they see that word. If they're seeing the word implication, then they know that there's some sort of idea that's being conveyed within a particular image or cartoon, etc. So sentence stems also serve that purpose as well. Overall, your sentence stems will guide your students in how to think and basically leads them in the right direction. Now, I know what you may be thinking. I could give them all this and they still don't want to think. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if your students are personally invested in the content, if you've sold them the lesson and they personally find it interesting and intriguing, and they are empowered with ways to resolve the problem, the conflict, the situation that you are tasking them with, if they feel that they can answer this question because they have the support and guidance, then they are more likely and amenable to putting in the effort to think. This is why at the beginning of the video, I stressed that the way you present the information, the way you sell the lesson actually matters. So if you want to know a few more interesting ways that you can get your students hyped and invested in your history content, I'll go ahead and link up a video up above and down below called Teaching History in an Interesting Way that you can watch as soon as you're done watching this video. Also, make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning how to teach your students content vocabulary and comprehension. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to watch Highly Distractible Class for teachers who need ideas for intrinsically motivating their learners and piquing their curiosity. How to know if your students are really learning. This is for teachers that are looking for ways to plan more intentionally, as well as how to teach history in an interesting way for teachers that are looking for creative ways to teach history in a more unconventional way. Don't forget that my virtual door is always open at Teach Like an Influencer, where you can check out personalized support and solutions that I offer. You're an amazing teacher. You are the secret sauce, and I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, class dismissed.